The downtown street gleamed with rain, reflecting the glow of expensive storefronts. Alexander Hayes adjusted his Rolex and gripped his son Oliver's hand tighter as they walked toward their favorite restaurant. At 7 years old, Oliver was chattering about his day at private school, his voice bright with innocent excitement. And then Lucas said his dad could beat up any dad look. Alexander glanced where Oliver pointed. A young woman sat huddled against a closed storefront, a threadbare blanket wrapped around her shoulders. A battered stroller beside her held a teddy bear and a cardboard sign. Homeless. Anything helps. God bless. Alexander's jaw tightened. He'd seen too many panhandlers in this neighborhood lately. He tugged Oliver's hand. Come on, son. We have reservations. But Oliver had stopped walking, his small body rooted to the sidewalk. He stared at the woman with an expression Alexander couldn't quite read. Not fear, not curiosity, but something deeper. Recognition. Dad, Oliver whispered, his voice trembling. That's Mom. Alexander's blood turned to ice. What? Oliver, your mother is... I know what you told me. Oliver pulled his hand free and took a step toward the woman. But that's her. That's Mommy. The woman looked up at the sound of Oliver's voice. Her face was gaunt, aged beyond her years by hardship, her blonde hair matted and dirty. But when her eyes met Oliver's, they widened with a mixture of shock, love, and devastating shame. Ollie, her voice cracked. Alexander felt the world tilt. That voice. He knew that voice. Emma? The name came out as barely a whisper. His wife, his ex-wife, the woman he'd told Oliver had died 3 years ago, was sitting on a wet sidewalk, homeless and broken. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Alex, I didn't know you'd... I didn't mean for you to see me like this. Oliver broke free from Alexander's grip and ran to her, throwing his small arms around her neck. Mommy! Mommy, where have you been? Dad said you went to heaven, but I knew it wasn't true. I knew you'd come back. Emma sobbed, clutching her son with shaking hands. Oh, baby, oh, my sweet boy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Alexander stood frozen, his mind reeling. 3 years ago, Emma had left. Walked out with no explanation, no goodbye. Just a note saying she couldn't do this anymore. He'd been devastated, then angry, then decided it was easier to tell Oliver she'd died than to explain that his mother had abandoned them. He'd assumed she'd run off with someone else, started a new life somewhere warm and carefree. He'd never imagined this. Emma, what happened to you? Alexander's voice was harsh, defensive. Where have you been? Emma looked up at him, and the brokenness in her eyes cut through his anger. I got sick, Alex. Really sick. Mental breakdown, the doctors called it. Severe depression, anxiety, psychosis. I was hearing voices telling me I was a terrible mother, that Oliver would be better off without me, that I was ruining both your lives. She wiped her eyes with a filthy sleeve. I checked myself into a psychiatric facility, spent 6 months there. When I got out, I'd lost everything. Our apartment, my job. I was too ashamed to come back, too broken. I thought you'd both moved on, that Oliver was better off thinking I was dead than knowing his mother was this. She gestured to herself. But you're my mommy, Oliver said fiercely, still holding her. I don't care if you're sad or sick. You're still my mommy. Alexander felt something crack in his chest. He'd spent 3 years being angry at Emma for leaving. He'd never considered she might have been drowning, might have been fighting battles he couldn't see. He crouched down beside them. How long have you been on the streets? 8 months. Lost my last housing placement when I couldn't keep up with treatment appointments. The shelters are full. Emma's voice was flat, defeated. I've been trying to get into programs, but there are waiting lists. I mostly just survive. Why didn't you reach out? Call someone? And say what? Hi, I abandoned my family, lost my mind, and now I'm homeless. Can you help? Emma laughed bitterly. I figured you'd moved on, maybe remarried. I didn't want to disrupt Oliver's life more than I already had. But I missed you, Oliver said, tears streaming down his face. Every single day. I prayed for you to come back. Alexander looked at his son. this beautiful, compassionate boy who'd somehow recognized his mother through years and hardship and transformation. Then he looked at Emma, the woman he'd loved, who'd given him that boy, who'd clearly been fighting demons he'd never understood. "Get up," Alexander said quietly. Emma's face crumbled. "I understand. You don't want Oliver to see me like this. I'll go—" "Get up because we're going home," Alexander interrupted. "You're coming with us." Emma stared at him. "What?" "You're sick. You're homeless. And you're the mother of my child." Alexander's voice was firm. "I'm not leaving you on this street. We're going home, getting you cleaned up, and tomorrow we're finding you proper help. Treatment, housing, whatever you need." "Alex, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do." He met her eyes. "I let you down. I was so focused on my career, on building our life, that I didn't see you drowning. I should have fought harder when you left. Should have looked for you. But I was hurt and angry and I made the wrong choice. I'm not making it again." "But I abandoned you. You were sick. There's a difference." Alexander stood, extending his hand. "And Oliver's right. You're still his mother. That doesn't change because life got hard, so get up. Let's go home." Emma took his hand with trembling fingers, and Alexander pulled her to her feet. She was painfully thin, unsteady, but alive. Here. Real. Oliver grabbed the teddy bear from the stroller. "Come on, Mommy. You can have my room and I'll sleep on the couch and we can have pancakes tomorrow like we used to." As they walked toward Alexander's car, Emma leaned close to him. "I don't expect you to forgive me, or to be anything more than Oliver's father. I just... thank you for not walking away. We're family," Alexander said simply. "That means we don't walk away, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." 6 months later, Emma sat in Alexander's guest room, now her room, at least until she was stable enough for her own place. She'd been in intensive treatment, taking medication, attending therapy, slowly rebuilding. The road was long and hard, but she was walking it. And she wasn't walking alone. Oliver spent every afternoon with her, making up for lost time. Alexander had surprised himself by how much he'd supported her recovery, not as a romantic partner, but as someone who'd once mattered and still did. "You saved my life that night," Emma told him one evening. "Oliver saved it," Alexander corrected. "He saw what I almost missed, that the person on the street was still the person we loved, just in pain." Emma smiled through tears. "He has your kindness and my stubbornness. He's going to change the world someday." "He already changed ours," Alexander said, "the day he stopped and looked back and saw you." Because sometimes children see what adults miss. Sometimes a boy recognizes his mother through years and illness and hardship. Sometimes compassion matters more than pride. And sometimes the person you thought you'd lost forever is just waiting for someone to look closely enough to really see them. That's what Oliver had done. And in doing so, he'd given them all a second chance at being family. Not the way they'd been before, but something new. Something harder won and more precious because it had almost been lost.